Joining me now is Mykola Kuleba, the founder of Save Ukraine. Thanks so much for joining and thanks so much for your work.
Thank you for the invitation.
Your report describes these actions by the Russian state as the largest, most organized campaign of grave child rights violations in Europe since the end of the Yugoslav war. Tell us the extent of what you heard from these children and what you were able to establish from these 200 cases.
Let me start from this story. Imagine your child being home alone in the middle of the day while you are attending a funeral. And armed Russian soldiers burst into your home. They kidnapped your son and take him to a military training camp. He doesn't even have time to write his mother a note. And this is what happened to Vlad Rudenko, a teenager we rescued from Russian forces. CNN just shared Vlad's story a few days ago. And this is a common story for too many of our children. Russian forces have systematically kidnapping our children since 2014. Russia is conducting the largest, most organized campaign of child rights violation in Europe in modern day, as you mentioned. And we know this because of evidence we have gathered that reveals the shocking scales of child abduction and deportation. And you can find this in our released report last week.
It was worth reading.
Together with War Child.
I found some of the accounts of the children themselves the most moving and the most shocking. I'm just going to read from one of them, a 12-year-old Ukrainian boy. He said the following: "All we ever talked about was Russia. Even at home, we had to do homework about Russia's coat of arms and national anthem. Every Monday, we had to stand for the anthem. If you bent down to grab a pen, the teacher could kick you out. Every class was about how Russia is great, and I remember the teacher calling Ukrainians Nazis, fascists, and Zelensky's army." That kind of indoctrination, I mean, it reminds me of stories and accounts from World War II. What is the effect on the children when they come home? Because this has to be stressful for them. I wonder how their minds process this.
Yeah, the war in Ukraine has traumatized our children physically, emotionally, and culturally. Our recent report, Return Every Child, gives a devastating picture on how Russia's aggression targets not just territory, but the very identity and future of Ukraine's younger generation through forced indoctrination and trauma. And one boy told us how the hardest thing for him was witnessing the death of his friend. The Russians found a message thread with Ukrainian soldiers in his phone. They ripped out his teeth and eyelids and cut off his fingers. He couldn't survive the torture, and later the news said he died of the blood clot. But the truth is they killed him.
So what's your reaction when you heard President Trump to say in the UK today, say while he was in the UK, that the Ukraine war doesn't affect the US? And then he turned to the UK Prime Minister and says, I don't believe it affects you either. How do you feel when you hear statements like that, given not just your accounts of how children were treated, but so many accounts of alleged war crimes by Russia in Ukraine?
I can tell you, as a person who devoted a life for 26 years of my life, I devoted to protecting Ukrainian children's rights. I participated in Minsk negotiation. Yeah, we have had very good relations and support from Americans and American leadership, always. We look forward to working with the president to help rescue, heal, and reunite our children with their families. And now, when we're talking with you, we have a huge Russian attack and kamikaze drones coming, dozens of them, and we need more support, and especially our organization, which rescuing abducted children, we desperately need financial support. It is impossible in these few minutes to completely capture the extent of this tragedy, and encourage your audience to go to our website at saveukrainua.org to fully understand the importance of our work and read more of our children's stories. And every act of support helps us rescue, heal, and reunite more children with their families.
Can you quantify, do we know, how many Ukrainian children were taken into Russia and how many are still there?
Through the occupation of Ukraine's territories, more than 1.5 million Ukrainian children were stolen. And still we have no idea where are they. We just know that through Russia information that more than 700,000 Ukrainian children have been registered inside Russia. But how many of them unaccompanied minors, how many of that children whose parents were killed, arrested, disappeared, still now we have no idea, because Russia refused to give Ukrainian authorities any information about these kids, because they think that they are saving children, and it's huge Russian propaganda. That's why we need your support, American support, to have access to that kids, to know a real information. Where are our kids? Because maybe President Putin will provide this information with the United States.
Mykola Kuleba, founder of Save Ukraine, thank you for joining us and thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much.